welcome to the yet to be named Magic the Gathering podcast with myself, Alex, aka Really Pretty MTG, with my good friend Dom, aka the Dominator MTG. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Welcome to the pod, everyone. We've got another special guest with us here today. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you, Alex and Dom, for inviting me on. I've been looking forward to coming onto this podcast. So my name's Wally. I'm the better-looking, more talented half of Chad Magic. You can see the other half of Chad Magic on this podcast. I think it was a few weeks ago Christian came on now. So we create Commander content for YouTube, complete with misplays, with politics, with all the salt, all the pepper, all the sugar, everything that you love about Commander. Come and check us out. Really good fun. We've got, I think, got something like 40 videos now. And if you look very carefully through some of our more recent videos, you'll see Alex's lovely face.
Yep.
So yeah, that's Commander, sort of pitched as sort of your first Commander game sort of thing. So maybe if you want to get a friend into Commander, or you've not given it a try yourself, that might be a good entry point for you. And Dom, will have to get you on at some point as well, mate.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. Come on the show. Yeah, we'll have to sort that out.
No, well, don't. Maybe get you guys on together and we can have the yet to be named MTG podcast versus Chad Magic. Although I actually thought you'd named it now. But
whoa. Hashtag.
So for full disclosure, actually, this would be an interesting point. We haven't discussed this on the pod, and I haven't really discussed this outside of our conversation, actually. So I don't know where you heard that from, Wally, but. We've got a couple of names that are floating around. We're still hashing it out. I think we've got it. I think we've got which way we're going. But yeah, it's yet to be revealed.
MTG podcast.
Yeah, this might be maybe after a few too many lemonades at Command Fest the other week. Something might have been said.
Oh, it might have been. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, so we had your other half, lesser half, maybe. Would you prefer lesser half?
Yeah, we can go for that. And just to be clear, Christian and I aren't an item, by the way. It has been mistaken many times. We actually got a message on Instagram, this must be about a year ago now, saying, you guys are the MTG power couple. And I was like, oh, move over, Brian and Olivia. Like, it's me and Christian now.
100%. So when we had Christian on, we focus mainly on sort of standard and competitive Magic because, like I sort of said on the last pod, for me, Christian has got his finger on the pulse. I know, obviously, the guys at the Battle Chads as well all have it as well.
Sure.
But I know you're the EDH guy, so we all love EDH. So we thought, well, we wanted to get you on, and we thought, so we're going to talk some EDH today. So lots to talk about, but generally, we're just going to, chat Commander and go from there. Let's start at the beginning. Wally, so
sure. How
did you get into Magic, and what get you into Commander? And then I think we'll convo from there. I think it's going to be the best bet.
Yes, that sounds good. Combo, I like it. So we're coming on to a future topic. So I started playing Magic with Christian, actually, and this is maybe 6 years ago now. And he decided to start playing the game. He'd had earlier experiences of it, but decided to get into it in a more involved way. And he had the game night set, the one that comes in the 5-sided box. Has 5 monocolored decks. Really good product, by the way. Like, if you want, I think it's everything that every Magic player should just have in their back pocket, because you can just pick it up and teach someone to play Magic really easily. And I played that, and Christian made the mistake of playing the mono blue deck. I can't remember which one I was on, but I remember very vividly that basically he managed to set up this loop where he was Rivers rebuking every turn. So I just wasn't able to get into the game, and I was sat there with all these cards in my hand thinking, this isn't much fun, is it? Like, I don't see what he sees in this. What's this Magic the Gathering all about? And yeah, we didn't really play much Magic for a couple of years until Christian introduced me to this thing called Commander. And the deck I was playing, I think it's a pre-con, Arabo Roar of the Wild.
Oh, yeah.
Christian might have upgraded it at some point. And I started playing it, and I think I must have just had... I remember that I went Land, Soul Ring, Felwar Stone, which is a pretty good turn one, as we all know from playing Commander.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's up there. It's not the best, but it's up there.
It's pretty good.
And I really enjoyed it. And that's sort of what sparked my interest in the game, because I thought, right, well, Commander's firstly 40 life. You can do more in the game. It lasts longer. You can do some more of these crazy interactions, make your deck do its thing and all that sort of stuff. So really enjoyed that. But think I didn't really get into the point where I was playing Magic independently by myself and owning my own cards until Arena came out on the iPad. And that was during lockdown that happened, and I wasn't busy in work. And I think I must have spent... I remember I actually stayed the night at Christian's the night before. He told me in the morning. I downloaded it his, went home, and I was meaning to play Zelda or something, but ended up spending like 13 hours straight just playing Arena. So that was the start of, an indication of things to come, you might say.
Sure.
And then we started having Magic nights. We mostly did limited, actually. So that was around the time when, what set would have come out then? Strixhaven, I think it must have been. Okay. So we did a bit of Strixhaven draft, and Christian had some other sets as well. We did a Commander Legends draft.
Oh, nice.
And eventually I thought, maybe it's time for me to actually sort of commit to this hobby. So built my first Commander deck, then built my next 20 Commander decks, then started a YouTube channel, then went abroad to play Magic, then made lots of great friends through the creator community. And now I'm here, digging my way out of this Magic the Gathering hole and just getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
I like to think of it more of digging it deeper, not digging out of it. That's what I always think.
Yeah. Well, I'm digging to the other side. They don't play Magic in Australia, do they? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Magic Con Australia, here we come.
Yeah. God, can you imagine?
Magic Con Sydney or Melbourne or somewhere. Perfect. I've got family over there as well.
Oh, that'd be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I think is what we're sort of starting to learn is there's a relatively common story, particularly for people that have played within a period of time. So Dom's played a lot longer than I have. My first set release was Throne of Eldraine. When I first came into it was War of the Spark. So, I've not been playing that long in the grand scheme of it, so I'm not old hat like Dom. But it's funny how, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny how a lot of people that started around so really started to get into it. Let's put it like that, because it sounded like you played a little bit beforehand. But it's funny how a lot of it. There's a couple of consistencies we've had recently, which has been Arena and COVID. So. Which makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because,
certainly does, yeah.
What were we all... I mean, I was still working throughout all of it. I didn't have any time off. But, we had an abundance of time. And the time I had, we'd normally be going out and about. I mean, I was still building Magic the Gathering decks and starting to get into Commander. And I was painting 40k figurines as well. We make the most of that sort of time, don't we? So
you and me, Alex, had very similar lockdowns in that case. Magic and Warhammer.
Yeah. It's so weird to look back at that. But anyway, that's a completely different podcast. So that's not a Magic the Gathering podcast. Okay, so if we had to pin yourself to some colours, what would you say is your favourite colours? Any combo or even mono, or what's your favourite style to play?
So my favourite colour basically is anything with black in.
Oh, okay.
Cool. I think black is just the colour that really speaks to me. I like the way that it has a level of being able to control the board, obviously with the really good removal spells at instant speed and that sort of thing. Obviously the enchantment removal there is garbage, but less said about that the better. And I think that's possibly because Aristocrats is actually just my favourite sort of archetype of the game, and every Aristocrats deck has black in because that is the colourway you get all that sort of thing.
Sure.
So, and I just find I have the most success in there. And then I've obviously, when I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but prior to starting the channel, I spent about a year living in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. So I was there during the Baldur's Gate pre-release, and I built a mono black deck in that because black was just so open in the draft pod. I think I had 5 murders in my deck. I just absolutely stormed the pre-release. No one could get near me. I was winning every game by like turn 10 or something, which in limited Commander is not too bad.
Wow.
I think that really sort of asserted my love of that particular colour. I mean, on the other hand, if you speak to Christian, he'll say what Wally likes is bullshit. And, and often bullshit comes in the flavour of banned or 5 colours, doesn't it? Or Simic. So, if you look at my deck collection, you'll see that sort of thing. I lean a lot towards basically just building a deck to do a thing and really relentlessly doing the thing.
Yeah.
So my decks tend to not be very interactive. I know lots of people will call me out on Twitter for that. Everyone says Commander should run more interaction. I think Commander should just run more stuff, basically. Just have more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, Dom, but I know that the pods that I play in, there definitely needs to be more removal, particularly artifact and enchantment removal. So there is a decent amount of. So there's a bit of a joke around some of the Wednesday pods that we play with, is that the best type of removal is player removal.
Yeah,
but I mean, I do agree with that.
but in truth, I think we all need to run it a little bit more. But as much as I say that, if we all run what I think is the correct amount of removal, the games would accelerate to a level and a period of time. I mean, let's be honest. If you're playing, I don't know, say there are certain colours and archetypes that really Gruul, for argument's sake, like fight spells, great. I mean, that would be your that is your bread and butter stuff and your pump stuff. But realistically, you shouldn't be sat there with no creature. If you're playing Gruul, in my thoughts, you shouldn't really be sat there with no creatures, and you're just, oh, well, I'm going to destroy this creature, and I'm going to do it's just like the colors don't really do that very well anyway. But do you know what I mean? That's not what it should be doing.
I feel like within those colors, especially, it's like all their best removal is 3 mana, right? So with the amount of ward you see these days, you're better off just attacking your opponent, forcing a block,
turn sideways, exactly, and try to get them like that. Because if they're like, oh well, okay, it's not ideal, but I'm happy to trade. Great, okay, I'm going to tap 1 red. I'm going to pump this, give it +2/+2. It's like that's the way I would build those types of decks. Do you know what I mean? That is the type of removal. Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I tend to build Gruul, because I think you're leaning into what it can be. But more importantly, if they don't, and you're like, that's fine, you're going to take an extra 2, or my favorite, I love a flashing in an Embercleave, particularly when they're like, whoa, I like to do this, or I don't do this. I'm like, yeah, it's great, I'm going to pump this, and also here comes an Embercleave as well. I love Embercleave. I love it.
Embercleave's a great card.
Yeah.
I really hope that eventually sees its way back into standard. I think it could make for some really fun deck building.
Me too. Me too. It was so Embercleave was in one of the first. I wouldn't say a competitive deck, but it was a tuned deck I built, and which was Rakdos Knights. And oh boy, there was nothing better than Rotten Regisaur with an Embercleave.
Oh goodness!
Oh my word!
It was just amazing, and I can remember the first time I played that and done what it was supposed to do, and I was like, actually, I probably spoke about it on the pod, but that was probably my first real. I suppose Oko was my first real taste of power, but that was the real first taste of a tuned deck and what it does. But
so for those that don't know, Rotten Regisaur, it's 3 mana and it's a 7/3, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. So you discard a card every turn in your upkeep. I think something like that. Yeah. So in a 20 life format, when you're giving that +1/+1 and trample, you're like, it's 2-turn kill a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, it's
double strike.
Well, I was going to say double strike and trample. So if they don't block, it's 18. If they do, they're still taking a hell of a whack.
They lose a creature and most of their life anyway.
Also, I like the idea of Rotten Regisaur, tiny arms with this massive Embercleave.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And I think my first commander deck contained Embercleave as well. It was a Kalane Reclusive Painter, which gives you counters for spending treasures and stuff. And I just liked Embercleave. It doesn't really synergize with the deck, but I like the card, so it went in. And that's the beauty of Commander, really. If you like a card, you can just put it in.
Yeah, exactly.
There's room in the deck to put in some of your pet cards, right?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's the beautiful thing. I think we can both... I think we can all agree that when it comes to Commander, there's pros and cons of Commander, and I think we could probably get into that maybe a little bit later on the pod, but we'll see how we get on. But the one good thing that is fantastic about Commander is because it's a 100-card singleton format, you're not racing towards something, i.e., I've got my 4 questing beasts and I'm looking to do ABC or blah, 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 wherever it may be.
Yeah,
but there is nothing better than when your deck is built to do a thing, or even if it's got, it's a very outside chance, but, when the stars align, I do this thing, and you do it, and you're just like, it's just amazing, isn't it?
Oh, there's nothing like it. And I think it's a really good point you're making. I was sort of, this morning, I was thinking, what little points do I want to try and get in when I'm speaking to Alex and Dom later? And I think you hit the nail on the head there, that Commander really is a way of expressing yourself through Magic the Gathering.
100%.
Because it's not this hyper-competitive thing where you need to optimize your deck because you paid £5 to enter the competition and you need to win some packs back or something. It is just a game that at its best, Commander is played at your kitchen table with your friends, which is what we do on the channel, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I do enjoy going to RLGS and playing Commander with other people that I don't know or know, not as well. But actually, Commander for me is just about putting the cards that you love together, and they do a thing ideally, but ultimately it's just about expressing yourself and having a bit of fun. I think what better format to do that when all the cards are available, except for like 20 or something.
100%. I agree with that. That's definitely a way of expressing it. What do you think about that, Dom?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the Commander Party events are actually really good as well for that, because there's, you don't get anything for winning. You get promos for turning up and entering, and then you just play Commander. And you can get like an exclusive promo card and things like that. So they are kind of supporting that a lot more through the LGS network as well.
Absolutely. And our LGS has some great Commander parties, and they sort of have themes. So the one they did most well, it was a few months ago, like a Valentine's theme. So you could give certain commanders partner and stuff like that. So you can build a deck that you'd have to rule 0 in basically normally, but it's now allowed because of this special event, which gives you, again, it's a different way of experiencing the game.
I love that. I love that. And then, we spoke with Christian about this, or I believe we did, but unfortunately, Commander seems to be the entry point to Magic at the minute. And I
agree that that's wrong.
Yeah, I say my EDH hat says there's nothing wrong with that, but actually, I think there is. I still think Standard should be the gateway into it, or. I'm not going to. I done a lot of ranting about this, not ranting, but I done a lot of talking about this last time. I think the pre-release kits, and I think what are they called? It's just gone from my head now.
Challenger decks.
Challenger decks and starter kits. That was the one I was after. I'm a massive believer in them. Like price point. Anyway, we've already done that conversation. But yeah, I definitely think so, because the problem is I've played with a few people recently that have either not played a massive amount or only starting to learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they've got these decks, these precons, which there's nothing wrong with. I'm a massive advocate for precons. But you sit there and you're like, how do I play this timey-wimey deck, guys? And you're just sitting there and you're like, I think
it's a good example. I think the Doctor Who precons in particular, I thought were very, very complicated. I think in general precons are getting stronger, which means that in a certain way they are getting more complicated. But Doctor Who was like a step above, and we did a Doctor Who special for the channel, and it was one of the least enjoyable games of Magic I've ever played, because we were all and it doesn't come across on camera at all. Like on camera, it comes across as a really good game. But we all sat round at the end and said, "Guys, that game was rubbish." Like none of us enjoyed it at all. And it's because we're so like, oh my god, what does this new card do? And it's got reams and reams of text that you can't be engaged and you can't banter and you can't, understand what your opponents are doing. It didn't help as well that Christian was wearing a massive box to be the TARDIS. So he was basically, from a social perspective, not in the game really. It was just quite flat. But then more recent precons, so the Outlaws of Thunder Junction ones were great, like absolute quality, I thought.
I think, to be quite honest, the last few sets have been fantastic. I mean, I think we could probably... I'm just looking at some of my deck boxes here. The Ixalan ones were really good. That Merfolk one was really, really good.
I played, and I loved it,
I didn't get it, only because... I will probably get around to building at some point. I've been wanting to build a Merfolk deck for a while, and that style of it as well... Oh, I mean, it's just bump and run, isn't it? It's just like it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like it's just phenomenal.
It's a proper Simic value deck, which is a real archetype in Magic, isn't it? 100%. But the dinosaur precon from Ixalan.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So I do have
I love that.
It's good. it's really good. And so I've got that. It's yeah, exactly. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. And I think we were talking to Christian about this. A lot of the modern precons. It's the same as with a lot of decks, really. If you want to significantly up its level, it's quite an easy one, because if you just do the lands, half the time they're great. So the other one I would say it's not that difficult, but you have to make a decision. Is I've got the dog meat one from the Fallout guy, and it's fantastic. The only thing I want to do is I want it to go either equipment or enchantment auras, because it's a bit split. Yeah. But I tell you what, once even with as it's built, it can get so powerful so quickly. It's wild. It really is.
I think most precons can be made into a very let's say every precon's a 7. And that's not true, but let's just say it is.
Okay.
You could make that into an 8 or a 9 by changing 6 cards, maybe, and you wouldn't have to spend more than £10.
Yep.
And as you say, change the lands a bit as well. You've probably just got the lands to put in there.
Yep. I still
Doesn't
think
take much effort.
Yeah, I still think you could change 10 cards and say sort your land base out. I don't even mean that. I mean, again, sounding this all off again. I've started to take my OG jewels out of a lot of those kind of decks because shock lands are more than good. The triomes are good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the only. So what I'm currently I'm going to do is I'm building a five color commander deck. I will put my OG jewels in that. Only because 5 color, you need to be fast, and that will give you that fastness. Whereas there's been loads of times recently I've been like finning through my deck, and I'm like, I mean, I'm going to get my Tundra, but I might as well just get a Hallowed Fountain. I mean, I've got 40 life. It's not really making that difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I've changed my mind on all of that. So, but even that, like, those shock lands, they've come down in price considerably. The fetches have come down considerably. A lot of the lands, we were looking at 30 to, what were fetches, when we started playing EDH? If not more. I think some of them were like 60, 70, maybe even...
Really?
80. Yeah, they were high. I can remember the Secret Lair fetch one that was a good amount of money, but you got your value's worth. But then it is what it is. But that's the thing. I think you could easily take 10 cards out, 10 cards in, and it's fine. But
yeah. And I think, when it comes to OG duels, you were saying, I run Shocklands in my CEDH deck because, and obviously CEDH is very proxy friendly as a format, but I don't even feel the need to proxy in the Tundras and the Tigers and things like that because...
Don't really need it.
If you like in Commander, it's nothing.
You don't need it. Nah, you don't.
In a format, given that the game's going to end turn 4 or 5 anyway, who really cares? Don't get
me wrong. Yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong. If you are aiming at the CDH European Championships, then you're probably going to. But, let's be honest, if us three and one other person sat down to play some CDH, you don't need it. You really don't. Yeah. You really don't. Just touch on to CDH, because I know you play a little bit, and I do enjoy playing a bit of CDH as well. What got you playing CDH?
So... my CEDH deck was actually the second deck I built, and I remember I can't remember what I was doing, but I was just going through, looking at cards. I was only new into the game, and I saw this Najeela the Blade Blossom, and I was looking at it thinking, "Wow, this is cool." And I didn't even think that this is powerful. I just thought this is really cool, and so I built like a very, very basic build, and it had the fetches and the shocklands in there, but no fast mana, none of the CEDH staples. It was basically just a Warriors Typal deck. And then over time, I started upgrading it, pulled a Mana Crypt out of a pack. That goes straight in, obviously. And it is now just a full-on sweaty CEDH deck. But Najeela was actually the second deck I built, and I built a very fair Najeela to start with. Like, it had a few of the combo pieces and stuff like that, but now I'm actually at the point where I'm optimizing it so much that some of those combo pieces are starting to come out.
Yeah.
Because that's what you often do in CEDH. It comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a funny one. Dom... do you fancy a bit of CDH?
Yeah, I've got a Tivit deck is probably my most powerful deck. Okay. It's basically you make a bunch of treasuring clues and then fetch a time sieve and take infinite turns. It's great fun.
So, Wally, the word clue was mentioned. Do you know what has to be said when clue is mentioned? Do you remember from our recording?
I've got a raging clue.
That's it.
Every time someone makes a clue on the channel, or at least the first time each episode, it's got to be said. Because we all love South Park at the end of the day, don't we?
Yeah.
South Park's amazing.
Now, South Park Universes Beyond, I would buy the hell out of.
Oh my god, yes! I would definitely be on board with that as well. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Which commander would you want? I'd want Mr. Garrison.
Would you?
I'd want a Kenny Reanimator deck.
Oh my god, that's so good. See, mine would probably just be a classic. I'm going to be an absolute dickhead, Eric Cartman style deck.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
That'd probably be mine.
Why change the habit of a lifetime?
Exactly. I play monstrous decks and things like that. It is what it is. Speaking of which, actually, I was just showing Wally. Wally. I was showing Dom before we started. I managed to get hold of one of these, so I'm going to rebuild my Grand Arbiter Augustin.
Keep that away from me.
Yeah. For those listening in the car, it's a Grand Arbiter Augustus. So yeah, you're not going to make any friends with that one.
Do you know what? The first time round I built it, I really enjoyed it, and
you had a great time.
Yeah, I had a fantastic time. This one's going to be a little bit different though. This is this isn't going to be a nice deck because that's the type of monster I am.
Yeah, I'm playing Grand Arbiter, and let me assure you guys, it is that Grand Arbiter.
Yeah, it is monstrous. Okay, let's talk about a specific or favorite EDH moment we can think of. So, favorite EDH moment. Dom, why don't you kick off? Wally, you can have a moment to think about it.
Favorite is a difficult one. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a little story about a game I was actually playing last night.
Okay.
Where shout out to Sam, he was playing his Gitrog deck.
Oh yeah.
And he was comboing off, sacrificing all his lands to a Zero Orbs. He was gaining a whole load of life. And he had a World Shaper on the board, which is when it dies, it returns all of your lands into play.
Yep.
And he had a couple of like Lotus Cobra effects, so when they were all coming back, he was getting more mana and everything. And eventually, all of his lands were in the graveyard, and he went to Beast Within his World Shaper, and I had a Bolt Bend on my hand. So I used it, and he Beast Within his own Gitrog, and it stopped the combo. And it's like, that was absolutely hilarious. I
love it.
So, one red, and he did still Torment of Hellfire for 20. So we all went down to like between 3 and 5 life, but then we had a full rotation of the table to try and stop him again, which we didn't manage to do. But obviously that moment was just brilliant.
And that's what EDH is about, isn't it? Some crazy application of a card that you never thought about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my story is going to be very similar, actually, to be fair. So
I think you've just said it exactly right there. That is what all EDH players want and enjoy. For either your thing to do what it does, or for someone else's thing to go, and you'll just be like, right, I'm going to stop that. Because that's the game, isn't it? Got in, Wally. What's your favourite EDH moment?
You guys might need to help me with some card names here, but I was playing a Boros Knights commander deck. Can't even remember the name of the commander now. It was just some card that I had. When you sort of start and you just throw decks together and they're kind of vaguely synergistic. Yeah. And I was playing a mono against a mono white lifelink deck. And they had the priest out that I think when you've got 6 more life in your stars utility, you can tap it to make an angel or something like that.
Ah, yes, Speaker of the Heavens.
Speaker of the Heavens, yeah. And they also had a wall from one of the sagas that makes a wall, so 0/4 wall or something like that.
Yeah.
And this guy is causing absolute havoc with this, with these angels. He's got some way of untapping it, and life totals going up. And this Hallowed Priest just needs to be dealt with, basically. And what did I do? So I top decked. I don't know which one it is. One of the cards that lets you steal a creature, give it haste, and you've got the creature. So I steal his Hallowed Priest and swing at him with it. Blocks with the wall, obviously. The wall's a 0/4, not going to kill it. Yeah. Then I cast the adventure side of Rimrock Knight to give the wall +2/+0 and first strike or whatever it does. It's like, why am I combat freaking my opponent's creature? But it worked. Killed the priest, and then I'm the hero of the table for a moment. We still lost because this guy got to like 500 life or something stupid. Yeah, but it was fun, and it was very early in my EDH career, and I felt really clever for doing it, so enjoyed that.
Oh, that's just beautiful. And again, that's the thing with Commander. It's using your cards in unique ways, i.e., so the classic one is I'm gonna steal this creature that's causing a problem. I'm gonna sacrifice it to my frictional or whatever it is. Like that's the classic. Yeah. But I like that one. It's like, oh, you're gonna block it. Oh yeah, great, okay. And then
exactly. And then we walked straight into it. And there was, in hindsight, it was probably a misplay to block it because there were much better targets to steal. Like, whatever I stole was probably being swung at this guy, but there were bigger and scarier things to steal than this, 1/2 lifelinker or whatever that creature is. Yeah. Anyway, I felt clever, and so I enjoyed it.
Nice.
That's a nice move. I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, God. What's my one?
Oh, you countered a spell. Well done.
No. I tell you, I don't know if it's my favourite, but it's one of my most memorable was so when what's the card called? When when Hull Breacher was legal in EDH.
Oh, dear.
I was
the dark times.
the dark times. I'd recently just got hold of a card, and it was a pretty good card, and I was excited to play with it, and I was a bit like, well, what would be really good with this card? Hull Breacher. So I was like, okay, well, I built it. It was just upgraded a deck and sort of slid it in. I'd already got something like that, so it worked really, really nicely. And I can't remember exactly how it was, but it was effectively flashed it in response to playing a Time Twister, and everyone was just like, "Oh." So I think I can't remember exactly what it was. I played something in the end step, and the counter magic happened there, and they were like, "Right, we've got to get rid of this." And they ended up getting rid of something else on my board state that was building towards. I was like, "Perfect! Like that's exactly what I wanted." And it flashed in, and it was just one of those moments where everyone was like, "Oh, oh, this isn't very good."
Is that one of those combos where people are left with no cards in hand, basically?
Yeah. So basically, what happens is
it's a wheel, right?
Yeah. So you shuffle your graveyard and your hand into your deck, shuffle it, and you draw 7 cards. But because of Hull Breacher, I actually create treasures. Treasures for every card they should do. So they're left with no hand. I've got a full grip and probably 20 plus treasures. Like it's pretty disgusting. But so I liked that. But the thing that I liked even more is about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I was watching a Game Nights, and they'd had Cassius Marsh on there, and he'd done the exact same. He'd done the exact same thing, and I was like,
yes. But he didn't manage to pull it off, if I remember. I think he got a bit greedy, and he managed to get a deflecting swat to stop the whole thing from happening.
Yeah, that's right.
A similar thing.
Yeah,
a similar thing happened on one of our episodes, actually.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, so we have an episode where we've got 4 Izzet decks facing off against each other.
Oh, wow.
The guy who wins the game, he does that similar thing, but it's with Narset instead of Hull Breach.
Yeah.
Yep. But he had just, on the end step of the player before him, overloaded Cyclonic Rift, so nobody had any permanents.
Oh my god! That's full beast mode, that is.
Yeah, it was horrifying. Like, I felt ill watching it.
Oh, wow.
At least that's only a treasured memory for yourself and Cassius now that it's been banned, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh no, I'll still do it with Nas on the field. Don't you worry about that. Like,
I'm sure.
I'll still do it. Don't you worry. Okay, I'm just looking at my little list of things to discuss. So I tell you what, let's start with, what do we think the general state of EDH is? Dom, I'll let you have a little stab at this first. Again, give Wally a chance to think about this. Sorry, Wally, I'll throw you under the bus with some other ones in a minute. But
cool, I'm all up for bus throwing.
A general state, I think it's, it's on the up. Pre-cons are better than ever. There's more commander-focused events. You got the Magic Cons. You got the Command Fest, which Axion are doing in the UK, which has been brilliant. The one we went to. And I feel like because it's a multiplayer game, you can cultivate those friendships, and there's a lot of exciting stuff going to be happening. We're going into Modern Horizons 3. There's going to be a bunch of commanders there. Although it's a straight to modern set, obviously there's going to be a whole load. You're getting the commander decks with it.
Yep.
And whilst they are doing the over expensive collector's editions, obviously they're doing regular ones as well. And I think Bloomburrow as well. Everyone's going to have these fairy commanders. That's going to be great.
Yep.
Everyone's an otter. Yeah, you name it.
Oh,
exciting? Yeah, utterly amazing.
Did you? I like that. Did you see the accidentally spoiled Jace Fox version?
I have. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's a shame that there's been quite a lot of leaks recently. It's like a good third of them on Horizons.
Hasn't it?
Yeah, Modern Horizons 3 is basically most of the sets leaked now.
That one was an accident, though, wasn't it? So I know. Yeah. So I know it was. I won't say the name of it, but I know a company had obviously got the product and had released the image, and in you was a bit like I remember seeing it and think, oh, cool, a Fox version of Jace the Mind Sculptor. I was like, oh, that's really, really sweet. It didn't twig. It didn't twig until a couple of days later when all of a sudden you couldn't find that that advert again. And I was like, and then the penny dropped. It's like, but you know,
they done mess up.
Yeah, spoilers. I personally, they have a spoiler season for a reason. Why not wait? I know the whole idea is that, you know, they want to build hype and it all comes together. But actually, I feel like at least it's contained within that period of time. Whereas if they're spoiling cards 2 weeks before that, I find like you just lose some of that emphasis for it, and that sort of, you know, that excitement for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because Wizards released an article, right, and they released like the HD images of a lot of the cards that had leaked from Modern Horizons.
Yeah,
it's like as they said in that article, it's like a lot of people do prefer to engage with new cards in this way, because sometimes you just can't avoid seeing it on socials, right?
Yeah, well,
and,
that happens.
Yeah.
And I always block people who share spoilers or leaks rather than spoilers because sometimes you just don't want to know. I know if I want to see a leak, I know where I can go to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't want it forced on me.
Yeah.
It's like I do have a leaks channel in my Discord, but it's a locked channel. It's like if people don't want access to it, then they don't have to. Yeah, right.
I think there's a big difference between like the example I was giving, which was, oops, a mistake was made, and you know, I mysteriously had my camera phone in my pocket for this. You know, those sort of really... The thing I can't understand about it is there are always really dodgy pictures, but everyone's phone nowadays are pretty good. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
It's always arm's length, at an angle and blurry. You're like, come on.
Yeah, like you're either the world's worst photographer, or maybe literally people are like literally doing that, but I don't know. You know,
maybe people in these factories just exclusively had camera phones from sort of the early noughties, and camera phones started to be.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's a little pin on their tie.
Why are you
spy cam?
Yeah. Why are you leaning over that card with your tie suspiciously flat? Oh no reason.
But sorry for derailing there. But
What about you?
What
about you, Wally? What's your thoughts on the state of EDH at the minute?
I think Commander's in a really, really healthy place, and I think everything that Dom said is correct, and that evidence of the fact that it is in a healthy place. That, I mean, we were all at Command Fest. Do we think maybe 1,500, 2,000 people were there across the course of the weekend? I think that's maybe a slight overestimate, but it's showing that it was bigger than the last one for sure. I didn't go to the one before, so it shows that the format is growing. I think what we've got to be careful of is we're potentially creating a situation where what's good for EDH is maybe bad for other formats.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think there is a way to live and let live and make, have a rising tide truly lift all boats. I don't think we're in that situation at the moment because, I mean, we can talk about Wizbro for as long as we want to, really, but they've seen Commander as the cash cow that keeps on, being milked for cash. And if we continue to push Commander in this way, what that means is people are going to stop buying singles and stop opening packs because they're not playing limited specifically. And that's bad for the game. It makes it more expensive.
Can I just interject here? Sorry, I do this quite a bit. While I was away, I was looking for staples for a couple of constructed decks that I was looking to build. And I thought, great. Yeah. I looked at a couple of websites that I normally go along to. They did not have those staples. And I'm telling you the reason why this is. And I've always said this. I am an advocate for buy singles. But if nobody's opening packs, these singles won't be available. And I think we're starting to see that tail end a little bit as well.
Yeah. Which singles were they, just out of interest? So which staples were they, just out of interest?
So a lot of them were just like lands. Like Spine Buff.
Really?
Yeah, Spine Buff. I managed to pick up a couple of them. Struggled with Stormcove Coasts, Spine Bluff Canals. Weirdly enough, the one I really struggled for, I was after 3 Picklock Pranksters. I could only get 2. I was like, and I had to get it from 2 different places as well. It's just...
That's a Wilds of Eldraine card, that, isn't it?
I know. Tell me about it, yeah. But it's just... I can't remember what the other one was I was after. Hall of the Storm Giants. I did manage to order 2... And I only realised this when I got back home because I thought, they should have turned up by now. And I checked my card market, and the guy basically sent me a message and said, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to cancel the order, and gave me a reason. I was like, fine, whatever. But trying to get hold of him was ridiculous, unless you want to pay ridiculous money. And I'm not talking about an extra 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pounds. Some of them, like some of those staples, they're a lot. Like they're 10, 20, 30 quid more. And you're like, what? Like,
It's mental, isn't it? And I think particularly on the land front, we're starting to see better and better lands get printed into precons.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, there's always like a cycle of lands that comes out in every standard set. But it seems that the only way that, like, especially the commander lands or the ones that Strixhaven had, which you reveal or whatever it is, they only seem to be coming out now in commander precons. So that means for every precon that somebody buys for £40 or something, one version of this land enters the market, and that's assuming that they split the precon up to sell it, which they might not.
Yeah. I feel like certainly alongside the sets where you get the collector boosts, that those lands should be in there. I know they in the Simic Elf deck from alongside Lord of the Rings, that got the Bond land, as they call it, the green blue Bond land, but obviously it wasn't available as far as I'm aware in collector boosters. Maybe it was, but
I opened many Lord of the Rings collector boosters and I didn't get a single land like that.
It wasn't specifically from that set, right? That's the
correct. But normally, I remember certainly in the era of set boosters, cards that were printed only in the precons were available in the set boosters. And that's where you get the borderless or the foil versions of those cards as well. But I think play boosters coming in has just sort of thrown a bit of a spanner in those works a bit. But I think overall it's a good move, by the way, the play boosters move. But it certainly has reduced the availability of commander cards.
What do you think to that, Dom? Because I've got a point I want to make.
What about play boosters? Or
do you think the play boosters are having that effect?
I think it's better for limited. Because you don't have to pick and choose, right? You don't have to buy draft boosters, which inherently were just worse than
100%.
Set boosters, right? So now you just buy the single booster. But if you're buying to open, I would say they are slightly worse. Effectively, they could say, there's all these slots here for rares, but generally you will get less rares than you would have done in a set booster.
In a set booster box, I agree.
Yeah.
I think
it's.
Gone.
I was going to say, I think play boosters are a compromise between the needs of limited, the needs of opening packs, but also, and perhaps most importantly, the needs of LGSs. Because at the moment, previously, they were struggling to understand what the divide between draft boosters and set boosters and collector boosters they need to buy was. So I think simplifying it for that makes the environment healthier. And I also think it's the mark of a good compromise that everybody's not entirely quite happy with it. So
that's fair.
That's a very good point. I'm not too sure. I don't think they've been released long enough to get a true feeling of the effect of card stock, particularly from Murders of Karl of Mana backwards. I don't think as they've been in long enough to have that effect. But I am, although I've really enjoyed them personally. I have found I don't think they're quite as good as a set booster.
I agree with that.
Personally, I was excited by the products, and I think you've made a really good point, which is you've kind of blurred the lines between limited and constructed a little, and it's all just. I feel like I know why they've done that, but they have just muddied the waters of the pack a little bit.
I think if they'd been released, it's a shame that the first set was Murders of Karl of Mana that they released with, because as a set, I don't think it was quite as well received as it could have been compared to something like Lost Caverns, right?
Or even Thunder Junction. I think that would have been a really good one.
Cool with the Vault cards and stuff. I did actually get a few of the pretty good. I only opened a bundle, and I still got a couple of the cool Vault cards as well.
So this is the other thing I was going to sort of say. My Murders of Karl of Mana ones, I felt like I got less than I normally would do from the set boosters. Whereas my Thunder Junction ones, man, I felt like I was pulling cards for days. And I'd done a recent giveaway, and I know Rev from War Remediate, shout out to him. He won part of the bundle I was doing, and I showed some of the pictures. I was like, he's pulled some really good cards. Like I sort of said, I think it's a bit too early to really get a feel for it. I think we need 6 months of it to maybe a little bit longer, maybe even 12 to really get a feel for it. But if you would have said to me directly after Karl of Mana, what are your thoughts about this? I still enjoyed them, and I enjoyed the product. And I think for pre-release days, they were great, because if you pulled a real sweetie, you're like, oh my God, it was fantastic. But in terms of,
it was when your opponent had it, it was real sad.
I mean, but that's
Classic limited.
That's always the way, isn't it? But for someone that like I crack packs to open to show other people, so I feel like I see it maybe a little bit more so than some. But I felt like Murders of Karloff Manor there was just a little bit. You'd see the cards and you'd be like, I've done okay, but I've only done okay.
Did you feel you were relieved you were opening for content rather than the cards within them? Or not?
Well, ultimately, you still get to keep the cards when you open the content.
You're getting to double dip there, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, if it wasn't for content, and the thing is I do use a lot of these cards already, particularly the really nice ones. I know a lot of people, I've pulled this really nice £100 cards, that's great, I'm going to sell it. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I tend to keep that sort of stuff because what's that £100 cards when you open it? You give to 6 to 12 months can be £150, £200. And if they're cards that I really want, I mean, it's well documented. I like the really pretty cards. So at some point, I'm probably going to want them. And if I don't trade into them, I'm probably going to have to buy them. And if I'm paying over the odds, that's always a feel bad. So I don't tend to move that type of stuff. But what's also really nice is that, I've normally got stuff around that people be like, have you got some of these? I'm like, actually, yeah, I do, or whatever. So that works with it. But just come back to what I was saying, but Thunder Junction, I felt like that was sweet. I felt like not every pack was a banger, do not get me wrong, but I felt like I at least got some good cards out of every pack, or some usable cards.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that's just the way I felt.
Because they had the big score, they had what else? From the Vault one. There was the newspaper one as well, so there was like three sort of, in addition to the cards you were just getting from the set, three things going on.
I felt like we got that Brucey bonus because they basically didn't do the Aftermath version of what they were going to do. I think that's the only reason. I mean, I don't know that for certain, but that's what it feels like. But if every set, particularly a standard set, because, come on, we've all opened standard sets recently, and they're just not selling because there's just no value in them, or there hasn't been as much value as there has been in the past. Whereas that felt good, and I felt like because of the extra cards they put in there, because of those Aftermath ones, it felt good. It felt worth buying them, in my opinion.
It started with Strixhaven, where they had the slot for the Instance of Sorcery's Right, 100%. And they continued it through the Brothers' War. You had the artifacts and stuff, and it is nice. It's a place for them to put reprints, which maybe otherwise might not have a set that they'll be able to reprint certain cards. Yep, and it does spice up limited as well, which is a good thing. So. Yeah.
And it's good for constructed formats. So obviously, Thoughtseize reprinted in Thunder Junction.
Yeah, what's Thunder
brings down the price for everybody else, makes it more accessible, and it's an absolute staple in Pioneer.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's a very, very good point. That's the thing. Yeah. This would be an interesting conversation to have this in sort of 9 months' time. But I think we'll generally get to the point where I think we'll still all miss having draft and set boosters, because draft is great for the people that want to do draft stuff, or a cheap pack to pick up. And there'll always be the set boosters that people be like, but I just get that. It's a bit more money, but it's a bit more chance. It's a bit like scratch cards. Do you know the difference between a pound scratch card and a £5 scratch card? Do you know what I mean? When you win bigger, but when you lose bigger. That's the nature of the beast. I'm not insinuating any gambling, of course.
Of course. And I think in this ideal utopian world where the economics of running an LGS didn't matter, I think we would be able to continue. And maybe there would even be more varieties of booster in that situation. Like if perhaps the only person who sold it was Amazon, who can take big, they can just eat a loss anytime they like because they're so big, then I think we'd have stayed in that environment. But I think it has really been driven by the needs of the LGSs.
Well, there's another side to this. I know we chatted to Christian about this as well, and me and Dom talked about this already, but there's another downside to this, which is, our LGS has been fantastic, but they've stopped doing singles now because they're just not getting the turnover. People aren't cracking the packs. People aren't giving those singles back into them for them to sell, and even the staple stuff. So they've just stopped it, which is gutting particularly from. I think it. I understand why. I honestly do, but
it's tough, isn't it? Because it's hard to justify mass box opening if they're all just going to be sat on the shelf, right? You've just lost money at the end of the day.
Yep.
You've got to hope that someone walks in and buys that one card, and the one card they might be after might be a temporary card.
Well, the biggest issue that I've been told about is obviously card markets killed it off, basically. You know, why sell it into
cheaper?
Why sell it into your LGS for 60% cash, 80% trade when you can sell it directly on card market? I mean, I don't know. It's a side of things. Look, there's a time and a place for it. Do not get me wrong, but I really miss our LGS not having singles. Like, there was nothing better than sitting there and flicking through singles, looking through even their older cards. Like, but I also get their other point of view was, you know, if we're pulling out older stock, you know, 5, 10, 15p stock, you've got someone that's flicking through 2 or 3 cardboard boxes, could take up to 5 to 10 minutes for a 10p card. I mean, that is not a good use of someone's.
There's no economy. No,
there's really not. So,
I mean, there's nothing to stop also LGSs listing their cards on the card market, right? Is another.
I mean,
quite a lot these days.
That's what I would do personally. But then again, you've then got to have someone that's effectively full time dealing with your sales, your online sales.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a double-edged sword, but that's how I would do it personally. But
actually, somebody at the LGS still then has to go through the cardboard box to get that.
That doesn't solve, but they could only list the value cards, right? But then, you've still got boxes upon boxes of junk sat there, taking up stock space, right?
Yeah, but then equally, what you could effectively do is sort of say, okay, we're only going to stock cards over £1. Everything underneath, we're going to donate to local kids charities or whatever.
You put it in the bulk boxes. People love looking through bulk boxes.
Exactly. Right? Chuck in a bulk box and basically, you know, it's effectively, I don't know, just take it for free. Or if you really want to do anything, you could sort of say, or
give a donation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think there's a lot of ways of doing it. But as much as we say all of that sort of stuff, you know, I know it's very easy to, boo-hoo, these companies not earning enough. But it's like, well, actually, that has an effect on our LGSs, which then means if they get to a point where they can't turn a profit and stay open, we're going to lose play spaces. And that's where my concern sits. Because, agreed. Because we're very... I know you guys have got a great LGS as well up by you guys. And we've got a fantastic one. I love Langdon massively. The guys there are great. I always scream and shout about how good they are. But I think if we start losing those type of LGSs, I know there's always people like, it's kitchen top magic, invite your friends around. It's just not the same.
No, it's not. The LGS is the heart of the local community.
Backbone of community. I've always said that, 100%. Yeah.
And I think Geek Retreat actually is a real threat to LGSs as well. So I would not be seen dead in a Geek Retreat. Partly out of loyalty to my own LGS, but also I think they're just generally quite bad for the environment.
So I agree with you in certain principles. So I've probably never said this on pod or anything like that, but I am the same. We have a local Geek Retreat that, in all honesty, you could probably kick a football from door to door if it was as the crow flies. And I personally don't feel like it's that inviting. Me personally, I feel like I've been in there once before to go play with some other people that won't go into our local LGS to go play some Commander. I personally didn't feel like it was that inviting. But the main thing is that
it's. I think that one of the problems is that because they've got a store which is WPM Premium, all of their stores are WPM Premium.
I don't like that.
You've got certain LG. It's like. I have been into our local Geek Retreat because they do the events that I can only get promos from that space. If I want to go to another premium store, I have to probably drive to London.
Yeah,
right. It's just not practical for me.
And I do get that, but just sort of to what Wally said there, I am the same. I don't want to go there because of my loyalty. So they're the two main reasons. The other side of it as well is that it feels like this was the business model, which is we're gonna pitch up a shop next to a current established LGS.
Yeah, that is absolutely their business model. They've got form for it.
And it's just, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, well, I know how I feel about it. I don't like it. But is it because of my love and support of my LGS over them? I'm sure there are people that love Geek Retreat and they would never go anywhere else. And I'm not saying there's not a spot for it. But I think that type of business model can be a little bit difficult. It's a bit of a difficult pill for me to swallow anyway.
It's like any predatory business practice.
Right. So these two things are different. I want to make this nice and clear. It's a bit like when you come across an LGS, a bog standard, what we'd call an LGS, that scalps prices of stuff, and you're like, it's that same type of predatory behaviour that really we shouldn't be seeing, particularly in what I believe are effectively community shops, really, aren't they?
Yeah, they're completely community shops, and because our LGS, you can go in and just play. You don't even have to pay or buy anything. You can just go in and turn up and play Commander.
We're exactly.
And obviously, you buy a sandwich or a cup of tea or something like that, but you're not obliged to pay for the event unless it's like Friday Night Magic or something like that.
It's fair. All of that is fair enough. When product is involved, there's normally a cost involved, and that's absolutely fine. But I mean, like I'm sure your LGS is the same, but I know ours. I mean, they do everything they can to keep that cost down, and they really do. They do fantastic work. Like they really do. I can't speak nicely about.
I sometimes wonder how my LGS makes a profit. It's crazy.
I wonder that as well. I wonder that as well. But at the end of the day, these are fellow enthusiasts, fellow nerds that are doing it for what I think is the right reason. So that's probably half of it. Yeah,
you'd hope so. Certainly,
we had to. So coming back to the original question before I come on to the next one. My thoughts on current state of EDH, which is then going to lead really nicely into the second question. I think it's in a really good place. I think it is. It's very popular. It's hard to not see the explosion of new Commander players, and there's more people coming to Magic. So it's got to be a good thing. More people playing Magic. So many more people are now probably going to be starting to play Commander and moving towards other formats. As much as bringing new players, teaching new players, I'm really passionate about, sort of saying to someone, well, have you ever tried playing Pioneer or Pauper or Modern or Legacy or Vintage or whatever it is, I think, it's exposing that to other people, I think is great. EDH is always a difficult one because obviously we all deal with the local environments. We talk about EDH as a community and a network, but let's be honest, unless you are going from LGS to LGS, from convention to convention, you're not getting a real taste and a test of that. But I feel like EDH, sometimes you can have people that got a really negative view about this. And I said this to Christian about Standard. You'll have spiky players or a spiky LGS that will give it almost a bad name. And I think you can have the same thing with EDH.
Absolutely.
You'll have pods where they'll be really, really bad. Which then brings me on to probably the big one, the big question that I'm going to ask both of you.
Is Farewell okay? Is that the question?
No, because I think Farewell's fine. Honestly,
necessary break on the format.
I think Farewell's absolutely fine. No, I think Farewell's absolutely fine. No, the big one, Rule Zero conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'll start this one. I think there's nothing wrong with the Rule Zero conversation, but I think sometimes there needs to be more open and honest conversations going on with Rule Zero. And what I mean by that is we've all been in Rule Zero conversations where people don't know, and the easiest thing is to talk about a number. 1 to 10, whatever it may be. The joke is everything's a 7. I think there's two aspects to this. One is the time to have this conversation. The other side of it as well is that there's always that one person that just doesn't quite tell you what they're actually intending to do. Again, I think these are spiky players, whether they in whatever format they play, more so than anything else. So I don't think we should take that as the norm, and that's what every Commander player is, or every Standard player is, or anything like that. But are we putting a bit too much onus on this Rule Zero conversation? How about instead of putting all this pressure on it and like, we're Rule Zeroing out Armageddon, or we're going to Rule Zero out stacks, or we're going to Rule Zero out counter spells, or we're going to Rule Zero out this. Don't you guys just feel like we should just sit down, play, and enjoy the game a little bit more? Now, I know that's quite broad. Let me explain a little bit more, because I appreciate there's different deck levels. Within your own pods that you normally play in, I think we can all we know those people enough that, so I know if I sit down with Dom, he knows roughly the type of deck I'm going to play. I know the type of deck he's going to play. and I'm quite happy to sit there, and we can negate that, so we can level that power between us. Now, with newer players, it's a bit more difficult. They haven't got a clue. But when you just sort of say to someone, it's only a pre-con, well, we all know what pre-cons are like at the minute, And
I think saying it's only a pre-con is fair because if it's only a pre-con,
the level.
There aren't going to be any. Yeah, you know the level exactly. So there's not going to be any 2-card combos. There's not going to be any free counter spells. There's not going to be any mass land destruction or land destruction at all.
Yep.
So I think a lot of these things that people get a bee in their bonnet about in Commander, if it's just a pre-con, I'll give a full answer, but I think it's just a pre-con is I think that is a fair rule zero. It's
definitely a fair statement.
No. And 100%, I think that's probably the fairest statement out there because we all roughly know right. I go to Command Fest, an Action Command Fest, and I sit down to a table and everyone's sitting around and they all go to me. They all sort of say, we talk about the level and they go, I'm playing pre-con. I go, okay, I'm putting all my spice away because it's not fair. Right.
Yeah.
And I know there are spiky players out there that be like, all right, okay, well, it's just a slightly upgraded pre-con, but it should settle in fine, blah, 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 blah. And then end up curb stomping people because they've got the combos, they've got all this sort of stuff. Why don't we just have a bit more of an honest conversation? Like, what I really like is don't know if you guys have ever seen The Worst Possible Commander, which is CGB's Commander show. And what he basically does is they show you the worst thing the deck can do. So they will show you the worst combo or how they're looking to win. So it's on the table. So even if you're playing with newer players, there is a social behavior to be discussed here that if you're sitting down with new players, you should not be curb stomping people.
Yes.
But if you just lay it all on the table, this is the worst thing my deck's going to do. Okay? No worries. I'm not saying you need to pull the rabbit out of the hat before you do the trick, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot easier. But also, if someone sends there and says to me, oh, I've got a very interactive deck that is going to sit here and basically interact with you constantly, it's like, great, no worries. I now know I need to play around that. I don't have an issue with levels of decks to play around that sort of stuff. I personally like playing different types of decks. I like playing with against spiky decks. I like, if someone sort of says I've got a real janky, but whatever, great, show it to me. Or if something that's really, really powerful, even better, show me. I want to see this. I like to see it. I suppose what I'm trying to say is do we need to adjust our mindset to the Rule Zero conversation? And what I mean by this is instead of trying to stop people playing what they want to play, should we either just adapt or just accept it? So I have played with a guy that plays mass land destruction. That's what his deck does. And he's just like, are you okay if I play this? I'm like, sure, show me what we got. In my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, I know roughly what it's looking to do, so just have to keep an eye on it. Or I'm going to play a deck that's applicable for it. It's easy. This Rule Zero conversation is more difficult with strangers, and that's where rule conversation really is the big one. Go on, Dom, sorry.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think there's levels of Rule Zero conversation. So say I'm having a Commander Night round at mine with Christian, Tom and Ant. Mm-hmm. They will say the Rule Zero conversation is I am playing this deck because I've played that deck that person owns before. I know what it does. I know its power level and I know what deck I own that matches it.
Yep.
Then we have our Wednesday night Commander League at the LGS. Now, the Rule Zero there, well, there is no Rule Zero conversation, but effectively there kind of is, but it's much more output-based rather than input-based. Okay. So it doesn't say no free counter spells, none of that. What it says is you're not allowed to win the game before turn 7, and you're not allowed to lock anybody out the game by turn 7. So what that means is by the time turn 7 comes, people might try and win the game, but the point is everybody has the ability to continue playing at that point.
Yep.
So, and because that's a competitive league and you pay to enter and there are prizes, I think that's fair. Then we come on to sort of LGS casual Friday night Commander, where that is where the Rule Zero conversation is actually quite important because people haven't paid to be there, but they have given up their time to be there.
Yep, that's very good point.
It's having respect for their time. So if I find a way to cast Armageddon turn 4, and then it just goes around the board, no one's able to take any actions until I win. That's I think that's wrong, actually. And maybe somebody listening would say, actually, okay, everyone should concede in that situation. But why should people be expected to concede? Mm-hmm. People should be allowed to play the game to its logical conclusion. I'm not sure if I'm building to a point here. I guess what I'm saying is when you're playing with strangers, as has been mentioned, that's where Rule Zero becomes important. And what I think would be good is, and I don't know if it needs to be from a level like the Commander Advisory Group or someone like that, but somebody with some clout give us a structure to base the Rule Zero conversation around.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm going to take devil's advocate here. So
yeah, of course.
The Rule Zero conversation for a lot of playgroups is just magical Christmas land and just doesn't exist. By the time you're asking what power levels you're talking, everyone's already shuffled up the deck they want to play with anyway. So it's kind of irrelevant. And it's like you can ask what their deck's trying to do and that kind of thing, which way you have to try and steer it to get that idea. But I think most of the time people have already plucked the deck they want to play out of their bag. They're shuffling it and they're drawing their hand. And I would say that's true, especially if you're playing with strangers, right? It's like a lot of the time, Rule Zero just isn't an option. And the CAG or the Rules Committee are in a bit of a spot because the only other thing they can do is add like 1,000 cards to the ban list. It's totally impractical. It's the last thing anyone wants is more bans, really.
I think it goes against the spirit of Commander as well, because Commander is about being able to play the game in the way that you want.
Yes, exactly that. So if your deck, wants to win on turn 3, but you should, if it does, you should be making your opponents aware of that. But I think a lot of people in the first game, they probably won't because they like to win and they want to win, and that can be a problem if you're playing with someone you haven't played with before. And whilst it would be lovely to have a 5-minute conversation, I think a lot of the time everyone's already shuffled up, so Rule Zero is often irrelevant. It just doesn't happen a lot of the time. And
let's also not forget the Commander is inherently self-policing. So say I sit down at a pod and Alex is there with his Grand Arbiter Augustin deck. I can guarantee that I am swinging every turn at Alex.
As soon as you see it,
I don't want to see it.
Yeah, you can tell him to go and sit in the corner, and then he can play a pod.
The difference is that when I play those type of decks, that's exactly what I expect, because that's what I sign up for. That's exactly what I sign up for. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. When you then have people that get real shirty, they're like, hold on, why are you removing my Kenrith anytime it hits the deck? It's like, because you've got loads of mana and you're going to do Kenrith stuff.
Card?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So this is kind of going to try and... I know what I was saying about the Rule Zero is a bit convoluted. It's a complicated scenario, topic to discuss. But let me pitch this to you guys. Should we be talking about a Rule Zero conversation, or should we be talking about a different mindset of Commander? And what I mean by that is should we, when we sit down to a table, actually, I'll tell you what, let's do it a different way. Wally, you sit down to a pod, or let's just say, you're doing multiple pods over, a convention or something like that. How often do you think you should be winning out of 4 games?
1 in 4. Simple as that.
Exactly. And I think 1 in 4 is fair. But we've all had times where we've not won a single game, and we've had times where you've won 3, if not 4 of those games. So that swings and roundabouts. I want to make that nice and clear. But
I think maybe the other point to make is, as a creator, when I sit down at a pod in Command Fest, people are trying to take me out the game. And it's the same with Christian. They want to be the person who killed Wally or Christian. Yeah. And that's fair enough as well.
Yeah, so, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's the real crux of the Rule Zero conversation, because it's like any tool. It's how the tool is used, not the tool itself. If I give you a knife, a knife and fork, I'm going to eat my dinner with it. But you could give it to someone else and they could do something horrific with it. And it's the same.
But you served me soup, so.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that's the thing. So do we, as players that play either spice, level, or dirty decks, do we need to have this more on ourselves? Not that we don't play it, that we accept our fate when stuff happens like that. So when you get ganged up on, it becomes a 3v1, first and foremost, if that happens for 2 or 3 games, you should get a bloody hint, man. Do you know what I mean? You should get a hint and either power down or play something different. Exactly. Or have a conversation, have a chat, whatever. I think that's where the Rule Zero conversation in my mind should be relatively easy. Really. It should be a conversation of what's the worst thing we're going to do, and then adapt to it. It's nice and quick, nice and easy. But I think there needs to be a mindset change, and I think it needs to come from players, all players, but particularly experienced players, and particularly if you're sitting down with new players. It needs to be look. I think if we can make those changes, I think the Commander will become a better format. If you want to have that mindset of going to go win, go play CDH. I mean, personally, I love
There's no Rule Zero conversation required.
Exactly. This is part of the reason why I love CDH, because what 60 card format does 100% is when you sit down there in let's just say for argument's sake, a tournament environment, you're there to win, and we all know it. So because of that, you don't need to Rule Zero anything out. CDH for me is the Commander equivalent of that. We all know we're going to play high level, or as high a level as we're prepared to go to. We all know someone's going to win, and they're going to try and win really, really quickly. That's it.
Like when I sit down at a CEDH pod, I am not interested in any of the other 3 players having fun.
No.
I am there to win the game.
Exactly.
If I sit down on a Friday night casual Commander, if I walk away from that table feeling that I've stopped somebody from enjoying themselves, I will have not enjoyed it either.
Yeah.
Because,
exactly.
I mean, and I think if you go on the Commander website, doesn't it say that the principal objective of Commander is for everybody to enjoy themselves?
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sure
how the format was created, right? It's designed to be a social format. You can play with your friends or anyone and have fun, see what everyone's deck does, and go away, win or lose, having enjoyed the game is the principle.
Yeah. I always feel like in a game of Commander, as long as I did the thing, whatever the thing might be, I've enjoyed it.
Understand.
And as long as I've not been pub stomped, and there was obviously the game we played with Alex where I was playing a graveyard deck, and in one turn my graveyard got exiled, I got swung at for 30 damage or something. That wasn't very much fun. But I did still manage to do the thing in that game. So yeah.
I think it's a massive conversation. I'm not standing here and saying it's nice and easy and we can swing the magic wand and it's going to be resolved. It's not. But I do think we need to look at ourselves a little bit more and be like, well, do you know what? If I want to win, and I want to win a lot, I'm not going to go to my local LGS, sit down with a load of new players and play my tuned deck. Like, surely that's on us. Surely that is on us. There's got to be responsibility, other than, what do you mean you're upset about me destroying all your lands, and then I'm going to use my Crucible of Worlds and other cards to bring stuff back from my graveyard, and I know you can't do it. Why are you upset? Like, of course people are going to be upset. It's a dick move. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I think if somebody wants to win and they win by basically farming new players, that is very much them not using the tool that is Commander in the right way.
So I
think you said earlier, Wally, when you said your first experience Magic was versus the blue deck, right? And that gave you a little bit of a bad experience, and a couple of years later it brought you back. Actually, by doing that in an LGS, you can cause someone to have that bad initial experience, which is exactly what you don't want, to try and cultivate a community where they're going to come back and you're going to have fun playing against them in the future.
Yep.
They might just go home and say, "Oh, I didn't really enjoy that." Yeah. That's the last thing that anyone wants, really.
100%. That's why I am an advocate that, look, I think blue should always be introduced to people and players. Don't get me wrong, but so I've built my own beginner's kit basically, and there is blue in it, and it's a harsh legend because it's mill, but it's a really good example. Like, it's like mono red aggro versus like Demir mill, basically, is what it is. The reason why I built it like that is because you get to see the extreme sides of Magic strategy, aggro, and I say control, but do you know what I mean? You get the two polar sides of it.
Yeah.
But the in between is where the strategy is, and where it starts to build off. I mean, look, as much as I love a control, I don't really want to sit down with new players and fully show them control. It's a bit like the episode that we were done with you guys. That wasn't really control for me. That was blue-white value, because flicker value, because no one wants to see me sitting there continuously policing the whole board. That's not what people want to watch. That's not entertaining. And I know we had that discussion before we sat down anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
But these conversations just need to happen a bit more.
Yeah, I think it just needs to be made with a level of honesty. And I think as well, people treat the Rule Zero conversation as a thing that happens and it's done. But actually, it doesn't stop, I think, because
that's a really good point.
Firstly, as a Commander player, you don't always know how your deck's going to go together. You might discover a new combo that you didn't realize when you put it together because it's 7 cards or 8 cards or something like that.
Yeah.
I think if you're playing with new players particularly, but maybe even if you're playing with more experienced players, you should be a bit more sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, upfront about what's going to happen next. So, guys, I'm going to play this card, and when I play this card, this is what's going to happen. If one of you can counter it, you probably should, because this will make the game miserable until I win.
Yep.
Just something like that. Because that, and for me, that is a continuation of the Rule Zero conversation.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, if you're playing a card, it's like, oh, this is a combo piece, but it's only, I need 2 more cards to make this work, right? At least then they know.
Maybe a great example,
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, and it all changes with new players as well, because say we're playing in a pod with a new player and someone's just smacked them for 7, but I've got a Shield with the Apocalypse on the board, then you've got to be honest and say, actually, yeah, I know you've just been hit for 7 and you didn't like that, but the threat's here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There is a another little side to this that, you know, politicsing is pretty much the same thing, isn't it? It's a continuation of the Rule Zero. You know, I know some people. Yeah. I know some people sit down and be like, "Well, I tell you what, I'll give you some card draw if you don't attack me for a turn." And someone will be like, "Yeah, that's great." Or do you want some blockers? This guy keeps swinging at you. Like, I'll give you some 1/1 humans. Yeah, how does that sound? Then all of a sudden you realise that the group hug is actually the knife in the back.
Well, I mean, no group hug deck exists just to make everybody else do better.
Exactly.
No, it has a wing pod in there somewhere, doesn't
exactly.
it?
It's giving everyone resources, but it can utilise them the best, right? That's the whole.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just gonna throw the cats among the pigeons with this. We've all just had a conversation. We've all just spoke about the Rule Zero and been open and honest and things like this. But here's another big question for you guys. Should Commander games finish quicker than they currently do?
I think that actually maybe is a topic for the Rule Zero conversation.
Yeah. I think those two things fit together.
What turn are you planning to win on? Or generally, if everything goes well, what turn is your deck going to cast its creative?
Because there is nothing wrong with a long game if it's long for the right reasons. If it's a long game because somebody cast Austere Command, then Wrath of God, then Farewell, and it's just wrath after wrath after wrath after wrath, that's rubbish.
Yep.
Nobody wants to play that game. If it goes long because it's going back and forth and tilting and people are interacting, 100%. People are doing their thing, I would love a 2-hour game which is just people going crazy and being stopped and reined back in.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, if everyone's decks popped off and the other 3 have battled to bring them back down and then the game continues and everyone has a turn of doing that, that's the perfect game.
New arch enemy rises and they're
yeah.
Here's
it's always the best kind of game.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the other thing. So do you feel... I'll ask Wally this first, actually. Do you feel like there is a time in a game where you shouldn't board wipe or remove the key piece to someone winning a game and basically being able to stop them within a turn or two? Do you think there is a time where you shouldn't do that, or do you think you should, it's fair game, you should do it any time and any place?
So I'm going to answer the question in the context of casual commander.
Yep.
For content, if we're on turn 10, we would probably say at some point, don't board wipe, and we might even get to the point where we say, let this person win now.
Yep.
Purely because we've got to edit it and it can't be too long because people won't watch it. So context is casual commander. I think there is never anything wrong with removing somebody's piece, because ultimately it's not, I don't want to use the word responsibility, but you are there to try and win the game. And if you just let someone win, you're kind of doing a disservice to the other players at the table as well.
Okay.
Unless you've made a deal and it's a really bad deal and you've got to just leave that piece alone. When it comes to board wipes, though, I think if the game's getting long and people haven't got many cards in hand, maybe it's getting late into the evening, people are a bit low on energy, I would say it is not fair to board wipe unless you are board wiping into a victory.
Dom?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I generally agree. And especially true if you can board wipe, but you have no chance of winning and the game's gone on, right? That
just feels petty, almost.
I've had it before where, I'm playing Boris or what have you, everyone else is way ahead. The board needs to be wiped and I've got one, but I'd rather just, shuffle up, play next and have a better game the next time.
Right, exactly.
That's gonna bring me on to how I feel about it, which is effectively there's been so many times when I've had that board wipe, I've had that removal piece, but that one person is so far ahead. What I tend to do is I will speak to the other two people and I'll be like, look, guys, we can see what's going to happen here. How about we just scoop up and play another game? Because we've got another 3 or 4 turns of this, unless we magically pull something off the top. The problem is that magical thing off the top is probably board wipe, removal of an important piece. So you're basically committing to another hour of the game. Now, that is not a salty scoop. We all know there's a big difference. But to me, that's not a salty scoop. That is talking to the other two people and say, having that conversation, again, come back to what you're saying, Christian. Wally, sorry. I knew it was going to happen this episode.
It
slipped.
See you later.
It slipped.
Where's the ejector seat?
Yeah, exactly. having that conversation of, look, we're not really doing things. This person is pretty much 90% going to win. How about we save ourselves another hour and we'll shuffle up and give you an opportunity to do your thing again? That's actually, I think, something we all need to think and accept a little bit more, And
I think those situations come around most commonly when the person who's way out in front is a control player. Because, say, I'm playing local rules and I'm way out in front, I'm probably going to win the game on my next turn, so people are inclined to let me do that. So say I've got Hullbreaker Horror out there, and I'm just cantripping and controlling the board, and eventually I'm going to win. Then I would even maybe say if I was that player, guys, do you want to just scoop? Because I just don't see a way here that you're going to...
That's actually how I play a lot of my control-y decks. When I'm in that position, I will fully disclose to people. I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm basically going to try and win by you guys not being able to do too much, not trying to react to me. And I'll even say, I said, look, I've got counter spells in hands, or I've got blah, 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 blah. Do you want to continue? If you do, everyone wants to, great. If one person sort of says, I'm a bit sick of this, even in the winning position, I will scoop. And I'll sort of say, fine, I'm good, I'm done. If you guys then want to play, I'll go have a drink, stretch my legs, and then we can sit down. I'll change my deck and we can do something different. Because although I enjoy playing those type of decks, what I don't want to do is sit down and someone sitting there and having a miserable time. And I don't mean miserable as in, oh, well, you kept a bum hand and you've got a no lander for 4 lands or anything like that. I mean, literally like miserable, we're not doing anything. I will take myself out of this. I'm not that competitive. I'm happy to do that if that's what everybody feels like is the best thing. But the problem is
it's very noble, and more players should be like you, really, Alex. To be honest.
Well, no, I don't know about that.
What control players?
I was going to say we are talking in the context of me controlling.
No.
But again, it comes down to us as players. If we're going to play something disgusting and dirty, you have to accept that people are probably going to want to kill you quickly, or I think there has to be that discussion of, do you know what? I know I'm the bad guy here. At the cost of maybe this game going on another 30, 40 minutes, let's have this conversation. If they still want to hang on in there, but it's still miserable, I will scoop. I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. And
it's completely reasonable. And I think it sort of comes back to what I was saying before. It's like it's a continuation of the rules era conversation, isn't it? But the rules era conversation is now not what are you playing? It's do you even want to continue playing?
Yeah. The problem is all we've really established here is that the rules era conversation is really complicated. There's no way of really simplifying it without oversimplifying it, and then there are loopholes or positions that people can take advantage of at it. So
I would also say it just doesn't exist for certain play groups, right?
No, I agree.
Situations.
I agree with that as well.
I think fundamentally it's trust based.
Yeah. I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good point. So we've been going for a while, but I just want to ask 2 really quick little questions of both of you. First of all, do you think we should be banning more cards in EDH? And
nope.
Yep.
No.
Perfect. Yep. I feel exactly the same. I really, really do. And
they recently, I would just say on that point, they did just recently ban the stickers and the attractions from Legacy. Mm-hmm. So it's causing problems in those formats, but in Commander, they're fine, right?
No, that's fine. Commander is, as I said, it's about self-expression. People should express themselves in the way they want. I think the ban list they've got is fair. I mean, I had a read of the Commander Advisory Group rules website recently, and basically what they're saying is they want Commander to be a stable format, so people can have a deck, and that deck is valid forever.
Yep.
Yeah, they have just updated that. Yeah, their site as well. It's worth giving it a read because they've kind of doubled down on the philosophy section. It's a little clearer about what they're trying to cultivate within the community. So give it a read.
It's really interesting, and big respect to them because it must have been a lot of work to do that. And they've also, for each card that's banned now, given like a little spiel explaining why it's banned and remains it. So that's quite an interesting read if you've got half an hour and you're at a loose end.
Yep, I think that's a really, really good point. Also, one last one: should we be more accepting of silver bordered cards in EDH?
That comes back to the rule 0.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
The rule 0. I will never say no to a silver. Well, what I'd probably say is, can you just explain what it is?
Yep.
And as long as it's not something stupid, and I can't even think of what would be stupid enough for me to say no, I'm almost always saying yes to a silver bordered card.
Dom?
Yeah. Most of them are fine.
Okay.
It might cause some rules questions, but you can have fun looking up, and it causes some fun and crazy situations you wouldn't otherwise see.
In the right pod. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you an example about this because there's something I'm currently building. I am building a silver bordered My Little Pony deck. And exactly, which is fine. But what I also want to bring up is there's a reason why silver bordered cards, or some silver bordered cards, are not legal and definitely need to be aware of. I can't remember exactly what it's called. There is a silver bordered card that effectively says that if you was to plus a planeswalker, you minus it, or vice versa. Which basically means you can play a planeswalker.
Your planeswalker.
And I think I think you play your planeswalker. I think you have to put 2 mana into it, and instead of your minus 12 that would be your ultimate, it's a plus 12. So your ultimate planeswalkers for 2 mana and that thing. It is absolutely wild. Now, if you're playing that type of thing, you need to be very open and honest. Again, rule 0. You need to be open and honest and sort of say, right. This is why I like the worst possible scenario, because I'm going to show you my worst case scenario, which is all these planeswalkers with this artifact, or what I think it's an artifact or whatever it is, that basically effectively says where it says on the card minus 12, it makes it say plus 12 because you're not even ultimating it and it disappears. You're plusing it and you're going back to it again.
Planeswalker decks do this anyway with doubling season, right? So actually,
not quite.
Yeah, they just quite. Ult every time. They play a planeswalker, they ult it, and that can just cause the game to end.
I think that's okay because doubling season is a card that's legal in Commander. But what they're doing there is they're taking a card that's not legal in the format and bringing it into their deck to make their deck more powerful, rather than making it more fun.
Yeah,
and that'll be an example of a card I say. If you're doing that in a Planeswalker deck, no thank you.
Yep.
If you've got no Planeswalkers in your deck and you've got it in there just for the banter if somebody else has one, because does it affect other people's Planeswalkers? I don't know whether it does or doesn't.
No, I think it's target player. I think I can't remember the name of the card, unfortunately, but yeah.
Basically, silver border cards should make the game more fun.
Yep.
Look,
that's primarily what they were designed to do, right? Have a unique and things that couldn't normally happen.
Exactly. So. Or you can even have like the silver board. I can't remember the card name. It's the Urza Planeswalker, where you have to go onto a website and basically it randomizes.
I love it. Yeah. I love it.
Me too. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Look, don't get me wrong. There are cards like you have to flip a card or you have to drop a card, or there's the booster tutor, which I think is really, really cool. Open a booster.
I'd love somebody to play that.
Exactly. And this is.
I really want to build the staff only card that they released, which is the Wanderer, where you can open a Kamigawa bit. I love that. I really love that. Yeah. I wish they released those cards, even if they were silver border. I just wish they released them to the general populace. But
100%.
There we go.
100%. I think that is.
Maybe I'll proxy it.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about Commander, isn't it? And
I'll just need a rule 0 conversation.
Yeah, but I think most people, particularly in our own play groups. I mean, I'm building it because I know that most people, if I sort of said, it's a silver. There's going to be silver border cards in here. I'm going to show you them. They're the My Little Ponies or whatever it is. This is what they're looking to do. If someone said to me, "Look, I really just don't want to play with it," I'd respect that, and it's fine. I put it back in my bag. But equally, if someone stood there and said, "I've got a silver bordered deck here, really, it's a bit janky," or even if they said it's really powerful, do you mind if I play it? I'd be like, yeah, I want to see this. I want to see this go. I want to see it pop off. I don't care if I don't win. I want to see it blow up. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's Commander in a nutshell, really, isn't it?
That's what we signed up for.
100%. 100%.
Exactly.
Look, Wally, I think Dom's probably the same. I could sit here and chat to you for another hour and a half quite easily, but
I need to have some dinner.
I feel exactly the same. So let's sign off. Wally, obviously, tell us where we can see your content, and yeah.
Yeah, so thank you guys very much for inviting me on. Firstly, this has been a really fun conversation. I hope everyone listening agrees. So check us out on YouTube at Chad Magic. We make Commander content, complete with all the warts and all, misplays, politics, everything that you love and hate about Commander, you can see. We've got 40-odd episodes, one featuring Alex, so do check us out. Obviously, we're also on Instagram with some dank memes, and Twitter as well, which is just shit posting, basically.
It really is, isn't it?
That's always
good. Yep, seek them out, drop them a follow, and yeah, check out their content.
Dom, anything else you wanna input?
No, thanks everyone for listening. If you've got any feedback, anything, feel free to drop us a message on the socials. It's always good. Constructive criticism.
Yep, 100%.
If you want Alex to talk a bit less, yeah, just let us know.
Yeah, I think everybody wants that. Everybody definitely wants that. Awesome.
Amazing.
Okay, well, everyone, thank you for watching or listening, and we'll hopefully have another one come out soon. We've got another nice guest lined up, which will be recorded quite soon, and yeah, looking forward to showing that, guys. So, as Dom said, give us any feedback. All that sort of juicy stuff, likes, subscribes, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you guys soon. And for now, we'll see you on. See you later, guys.
See ya.
Bye.